The DJ fades the jazz and invites toasts, and I feel my daughter's fingers steady under the tablecloth. My name is Rowena Glass, 69, mother of the bride, and if you need a picture, a plain dress, low heels, and a habit of listening harder than I speak. We're at Bridal and Vine Barn. It smells like cedar and lemon from the kitchen. Lights string the beams like constellations. Plates of beet citrus salad glide past like bright coins. Colin, my brand new son-in-law, stands too fast and snatches the mic from his best man. The room tilts with him. "She's the family shame," he says, chin toward me, voice riding the PA until even the silverware stops. She never knew her place. A few guests laugh wrong, then swallow it. The coordinator, Jasmine Ortega, signals the DJ, Walt Mercer, Colin's father, face flushed with rescue, half stands and blurts the sentence that drops the air. She's a billionaire. The word hits the rafters and comes down in pieces. Half the barn looks at me like I've hidden a crown. Laurel doesn't look at me. She watches the floor and breathes slow. I rise, not fast, not slow. I ask the DJ for the mic and the bar to pause alcohol, water, coffee, tea only. Power isn't volume, I say, and my voice carries without shouting. Power is responsibility. I say dinner will continue. There will be no more toasts, and anyone who can't keep dignity can keep the parking lot company. Blue Finch resets the pass. Steam lifts, short rib and salmon wait. A chair scrapes. Somewhere, a cousin coughs. The mic squeals once and dies. I fold my hands so no one mistakes control for anger. I don't list assets. I don't threaten jobs or mortgages. I look at my daughter until she looks back. Eat, I tell the room, and then I'm going to talk to my child. The band finds a softer song. Jasmine nods once. Forks begin again. The night is bruised, still standing. When the first plates land, Laurel's hand finds mine under the napkin, and we hold on. Dinner resumes because I insist it must. The servers from Blue Finch move like clockwork, clearing salads, setting down fresh knives, announcing quietly who has ordered short rib and who has chosen salmon with lemon dill. The band, uncertain at first, shifts into a softer tune, something gentle enough to let forks be heard. I sit with my back straight, aware of every eye still flicking toward me and away again, as though I might erupt. I do not. I sip water and steady the air. Laurel leans close, her voice barely above the hum. Why didn't you tell me about any of this? Her eyes search my face, not for wealth, but for truth. I tell her we will speak after dessert, in the side garden where the air is clean. Tonight is still yours, I say. Don't let a drunk voice write the whole story. She nods, swallowing hard, and sets her fork to the plate. I make my way around the tables as discreetly as a bride's mother can. Thank you for coming. I say to old neighbors, to colleagues of hers, to family who know more gossip than fact. I keep my sentences short, calm, a thread to stitch the torn cloth of the evening. At one table, a guest whispers, "Will Walt lose his job?" I answer clearly, "No. No jobs will vanish because of one man's stumble." My words land where Walt can hear them. His shoulders ease, just a little. Dessert comes. Flourless chocolate cake for most, lemon tart for those who asked. For 10 minutes, the barn remembers how to celebrate. Then a chair scrapes hard near the bar. Colin is on his feet again, voice sharp. The DJ cuts the mic feed. I rise, and Laurel rises with me. The air outside is sharper than it looked through the barn windows. Strings of bulbs cast a pale glow across the garden, and the fountain's trickle is the only sound until the door bangs shut behind us. Laurel clutches the edge of her dress as if it were a lifeline. I take her hand, and with the other I offer her my clutch. From inside, I pull a binder, plain and heavy. Nothing like the bouquet she carried hours ago. She looks at me as though I've just revealed another secret. "What is that?" she asks, her voice trembling. I tell her it is the safety net I built because love should not require free fall. Inside are papers drafted by my attorney, options, protections, boundaries. If she wants to try counseling with Colin, there is a post-nuptial addendum waiting. If she wants to leave, there are letters prepared for the court, housing arrangements, an account set aside in her name. Laurel presses her lips together. "You planned this," she whispers. I tell her I listened at the rehearsal dinner when Colin made a cruel joke about training a teacher. A joke can be handwriting, I say. It shows how a person intends to write the future. Her shoulders sag, and for the first time tonight, she cries. "I thought you didn't trust me. I thought you were buying my choices." I touch her cheek. Power isn't about buying. It's about building railings when the staircase is steep. You will decide, not me. The door crashes again. Colin's voice carries into the garden. He wants to finish his speech. Jasmine appears with a security guard, calm and firm. I place the binder into Laurel's hands. "Decide for peace," I whisper, "not for pride." We reach the gravel path before Colin stumbles out after us. His breath clouds in the cold as he braces against a barrel, eyes sharp but unfocused. The security guard steps forward and tells him to remain by the porch. He ignores it, lurching closer, his words splintering the night. "You ruined my wedding," he spits at me, then turns on Laurel. "She's the problem," he says, stabbing the air toward me, "and you're the bill." I draw a quiet breath and step between them, not to shield her, she can stand on her own, but to mark a line. "Jasmine," I say evenly, "call Rhinebeck PD on the non-emergency line." My voice is calm, not theatrical. It isn't about making a scene. It's about creating a record, a number on file, something that protects Laurel tomorrow if tonight becomes a pattern. The DJ's music muffles behind the barn doors, a faint pulse that makes this standoff feel more surreal. The guard relays details into his phone while Colin rocks on his heels, half sneer, half plea. "If you think you can buy her away from me, you're wrong," he mutters. I don't reach for threats. I don't mention mortgages, factories, or leases. I speak to him as though the crowd has vanished. If you love her, you don't bruise her with words you can't take back. If you follow her tonight, you'll do it with officers listening. Laurel meets my eyes, her own steady now. "I want to go," she says. So we go. Jasmine hands me the keys, slips Laurel a slice of untouched cake wrapped in foil. As we drive off, headlights cut across the barn's warm glow. Behind us, the music plays on for the guests who stayed, while our night divides into before and after. Laurel's apartment is small, tucked above a laundromat that hums through the floorboards, and when we step inside, it smells faintly of soap and lavender. She drops her shoes by the door and sinks to the carpet, dress pooling around her like a wilted flower. I set the cake in the fridge, fill the kettle, and light the burner. The space is quiet except for pipes clanking as they warm. I lower myself to the floor beside her. She doesn't speak at first, only stares at her hands, the ring bright under the dull lamplight. I tell her I'll stay on the couch if she wants company through the night. She shakes her head, then nods, then finally whispers, "I don't know what to do." I answer with action. We spread papers across the coffee table like a map. I show her which calls we'll make in the morning, her attorney, my banker, the counselor's office I keep on retainer. It isn't about drama, I say. It's about sequence, one step after another, so fear doesn't write the plan. She listens, eyes wide, and presses a hand to her chest as though steadying her own breath. At 2 a.m., her phone glows, Colin's voicemail plays, his tone sliding between sorrow and fury. She deletes it without saving. A minute later, a text arrives from Walt. Am I out of a job? I type the reply myself. No. Your work is safe. Tomorrow we'll discuss leave so you can help your son. His response comes in 3 quick pings. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Laurel exhales, long and heavy, as if she's been holding her breath since the vows. She leans against me. For the first time all night, she sleeps. By 9 the next morning, we are seated in a narrow office above a bakery in Kingston. The smell of fresh bread seeps through the floorboards, while attorney Mara Quinlan arranges the binder between us. Her tone is brisk but steady, her pen already poised. Laurel sits with her shoulders tight, hair pinned back as if neatness might hold her together. I slide the binder forward, pages fanned open like a chessboard. Mara explains each option clearly. The prenup already exists, but she can add a post-nuptial amendment that lays out consequences for abuse or financial exploitation. Counseling can be mandatory, and failure to comply would trigger separation. She lists steps for freezing joint accounts, creating independent lines of credit, documenting last night's incident. Nothing is dramatic. Everything is deliberate. Laurel listens, nodding faintly, chewing the inside of her cheek. So it's not all or nothing, she asks. Mara shakes her head. It's choices, doors you can close or leave ajar, depending on what you need. I watch my daughter weigh words heavier than rings. She looks out the window toward the Hudson, its surface flat and gray. I want a lock, she says finally, but a key I don't have to use. Mara writes, her pen scratching across paper. Copies are slid into folders, signatures penciled for later. We leave the office not with a solution, but with a map. On the street, buses sigh at their stops, students spill from a cafe, and life looks unbothered. Laurel clutches the folder to her chest. She is not lighter, but she is steadier. Healing, I remind her, is not a miracle. It is paperwork and mornings, and the courage to keep them both. That afternoon, I drive Laurel home and then head across town to the Mercer's house. Their porch sags slightly at the steps, and wind chimes clatter against the eaves. Walt and Renee meet me outside, neither eager to invite me in. Walt's face is worn, eyes red, like a man who hasn't slept since the wedding. Renee clutches her shawl tight, waiting for a blow. I tell them I didn't come to punish, only to set lines that must hold. Your son's behavior was his own, I say. Jobs are not bargaining chips. Tenants are not pawns. You will not lose your home or your work because of him. Walt exhales, shoulders lowering as if a heavy beam has rolled away. But I don't soften too much. Boundaries matter, I continue. You cannot appear at Laurel's apartment without her asking. You cannot carry his messages or shield him from the truth of his actions. If he chooses treatment, I'll help fund what insurance won't cover. If he chooses anger, you'll deal with me only through counsel. Renee wipes her eyes with the corner of her sleeve. Do you still plan to attend the landlord meeting next quarter? She asks, voice cracking. I nod. Of course. Pay your rent. Speak honestly if you need help, and we'll keep it neighborly. For a long moment, none of us speak. The wind chimes settle into a slow rhythm, like a clock finding pace again. Walt mutters that he's ashamed. I tell him shame is useful only if it builds a better plan. Then I step off the porch, leaving them with silence and the choice of what to do next. 2 nights later, the hallway outside Laurel's apartment smells of fried onions and cold rain. She has barely finished grading papers when her phone buzzes. A message from Colin. I'm coming over. Her hand tightens on the screen. Without waiting for my opinion, she forwards Mara's letter in reply. Clear, final, instructing all communication to go through attorneys. For a moment, it feels finished. At 9:15, a knock rattles the door. We glance at each other, silent. Laurel checks the peephole, then the small camera above the frame. Colin sways in the hallway, face pale, words slurred to the wood. "Just talk to me," he pleads, pounding once with the flat of his hand. I put a hand on her shoulder and nod toward the phone. She dials 911. Her voice is calm, giving details as if reading from a script. Address, name, prior incident. The dispatcher promises officers will arrive shortly. Through the door, Colin's voice climbs and collapses. Sorry 1 second, furious the next. When the police step off the stairwell, the building exhales. They tell him firmly to leave. He weeps against the railing, then curses, then weeps again. One officer presses a card into his hand. "If you want to keep anything," the officer says, "start by leaving." The door closes. The apartment feels smaller, but safer. Laurel sits at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Then she rises, opens the freezer, and slides the ring box inside, wedging it between a bag of peas and a forgotten pie. It isn't symbolic drama, it's storage, cold and practical. She shuts the freezer door and whispers, "Enough." Saturday noon brings a weak sun over Market Street. Laurel chooses Bluestone coffee for the meeting, its windows fogged from the heat of espresso machines, the air thick with roasted beans and chatter. She doesn't come alone. A friend from school sits at the next table, pretending to read a book. I take a seat at the bar with my cup, close enough to witness, far enough to give her space. Colin arrives late, coat unbuttoned, hair still damp from a hurried shower. For the first time in days, his eyes are clear. He slides into the booth, and before he can speak, Laurel sets a folded napkin between them. Resting on top is her ring. "I'm returning what never became true," she says quietly. "I didn't vow to be a lesson." He stares at the ring, then at her. "I can change," he says, voice breaking. "I just need time." She doesn't flinch. "I believe people can change," she replies, "but I won't be the price of your learning. I choose peace." She opens her wallet and lays Mara's letter on the table, the attorney's words heavy, even folded. Colin reaches across for her hand, but she pulls back. The friend at the next table shifts, ready if needed. His mouth trembles, then closes. He picks up the ring and pockets it, shoulders collapsing inward. In audio, the room would hold the sound of cups clinking, the hiss of steam, and a single sharp inhale that never becomes a sob. He leaves through the back door. Laurel stays, sipping coffee, heavy but certain. When she finally rises, snow has begun to fall, fine and steady, covering Market Street in a quiet she welcomes. Weeks pass, each one marked by folders filling with documents and hearings, scheduled on calendars. Laurel creates a system with colored tabs, blue for court, green for finances, yellow for counseling, because order helps her breathe. At school, she returns to her classroom of restless teenagers. When they ask if she enjoyed her break, she smiles and answers simply, "I enjoyed the quiet mornings." They accept it, unaware of the storms she has stepped through. At Red Oak Forging, Walt signs the new conflict of interest policy without protest. He takes leave to sit with his son in group sessions, trying to translate fatherly worry into something useful. Renee keeps her boutique open, the lease renewed with a fair increase and a new clause for flood relief when the river rises. I visit as landlord, not judge, making sure the numbers add up and that dignity is preserved. Colin enters a treatment program. He leaves after 2 weeks, returns a week later, and this time stays. Recovery is not a story of triumph, but a chart of jagged lines, sometimes up, sometimes down. Laurel doesn't track the graph. She focuses on her own path, walking by the creek after school, cooking simple meals, grading essays late into the evening with a candle burning for steadiness. Some nights she sits in my kitchen. I brew the tea my mother once made when life was lean and the cupboards light. We talk about how shame is just noise from others until you decide to believe it. Together we practice replacing it with better words, strength, boundary, choice. Each word settles in the air like a stone laid in a foundation that will not move. Spring arrives slowly, the river thawing in strips of silver under the sun. On a Saturday morning, Laurel joins a volunteer day at the community center. I watch from a folding chair as she sorts donated books, hair tied back, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Beside her works Jonah Mills, a social worker with a quiet laugh who fixes shelves as easily as he listens. He isn't a rescuer and doesn't pretend to be. He simply carries his own questions carefully, the way a man should. They speak about novels first, then about teenagers who borrow courage from the adults nearby. He asks her nothing about her divorce or money, only how she likes her coffee. Laurel smiles in a way I haven't seen since before the wedding, not with giddiness, but with recognition, as if someone has finally spoken to the teacher rather than the bride. By evening, we are on my porch, the spring air carrying the scent of damp earth. Laurel sets her mug on the railing and tells me she isn't rushing into anything. Power, she says, and I ask what she means by the word now. She looks toward the small constellation of town lights and answers. It's what I'm responsible for. My work, my rest, my words. Her voice is steady. No tremor of shame left. She says she isn't ashamed of having loved someone who couldn't carry love responsibly. She's proud she left before forgetting herself. The porch creaks as we rock in silence. Somewhere in the dark, frogs call from the thawed marsh. Laurel leans back, eyes closed, and for the first time in months, I see not just survival in her posture, but a beginning, months later. The wedding feels like a photograph folded into the back of a drawer. The details blur, but the weight of it lingers. On a Sunday afternoon, Laurel and I drive along the Hudson, windows cracked just enough for the cold river air to slip in. We stop where the path bends wide, a spot where the water seems to breathe with us. I pour coffee from a dented thermos into paper cups, and we sit on a bench scarred by weather and time. I tell her I once believed power lived in other people's eyes, the hush in a room when numbers were mentioned beside my name, the leverage people assumed I kept in my pocket. Age and nights like hers have taught me different. Power is choosing to protect life, first your own and then those you love. It's calling the police before an emergency becomes one. It's signing something hard because tomorrow demands order. It's refusing to humiliate the innocent, even when you could. Laurel listens, her gaze fixed on the slow current. She tells me she used to believe shame was a verdict handed down by others, final and heavy. Now she sees it as a story she doesn't have to read aloud. That night at the wedding, she decided to stop reading it altogether. We sip our coffee in silence, the train whistle echoing from the far bank. When we stand to leave, she looks back at the water and says, almost to herself, healing isn't fast, but it's forward. I nod, knowing she doesn't need more words. We walk to the car without hurry, the gravel crunching beneath our steps. The river moves beside us, steady and unbroken, carrying everything away but the choice to keep going. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.